When it comes to selling successfully, we're going to build this framework around the typical sales process and timeline. And you may be like, what? There's a typical sale and an atypical sale? There are. We'll be digging into some of the differences there and some of the options that you have for consideration as a seller more next week. Sadly, a lot of agents are really only one trick ponies. They only know how to put a sign in the ground and sell it on the market and see what happens. There are other options that you can explore, but we're going to start there as the baseline and then add some context and some other options off of that once we have a good understanding of what a typical sale is. We're going to talk about the timelines and milestones of a typical sale in the process and what you can expect as you go through it. Talk about the typical team for selling your house and who you need. We'll talk deeper about how to vet them and qualify them, but we'll also in a future one, but we'll also talk about the processes that you want to be prepared for, both from the actions that you have to take, but kind of the emotional, mental stress of selling a house as you go through the process. So let's define what is a typical sale as you're going through the process. What do I mean when I say that? What all, what does that look like? What does it? Oops, accidentally hit the mute button there. Sorry about that. Let's move forward. So, the most common or well-known type of sale, the typical sale that we are talking about, is when you just hire an agent to represent you on the sale of your house. Maybe it's your cousin, maybe it's somebody you know, maybe it's the agent you used last time. Maybe you clicked on an ad somewhere and found somebody and hired them to use your house, but you're hiring an agent to represent you in the process. They then work with you to get the house ready. That usually involves some pretty basic stuff. You list the house on the MLS or on the market. It shows up on Redfin, Zillow, all the places. You negotiate some offers and you close and collect your money. That's kind of the normal, typical process at a high level. Those are some of the key milestones in the process that you want to be aware of. And on the surface, it really seems so simple. In fact, that's why a lot of people decide to do their house for sale by owner. They think there's not a lot to worry about. It's pretty simple. Put it on the internet. There's a number of different types of agents that you can hire that will do it for a lower fee, and they'll just promote the house for you, and then you handle all the negotiations. But there are a lot of steps to the process, and mistakes can be incredibly costly. That's why we wanted to offer some free education around this, just so that you have awareness and don't make a mistake. So we see sellers make really big mistakes quite often, and they can be really costly. And with an asset like your house, you don't want to make those really expensive mistakes. In our process to list a house, we have 148 different tasks. We're actually updating the task list at the end of this month, but we have 148 different tasks and to-dos to check off in the process to make sure that everything goes smooth and that we've covered everybody's bases. When you get into little things like contracts, negotiations, things like that, even pricing strategy, things can get really expensive really quick. So you want to be aware of those things and be mindful of them.